Okay, I just finished reading Callista by St. John Henry Newman. It's an excellent read, and I think it actually satisfies one of the challenges for the Victober, because it was published in 1855, and that was the same year that one of my favorite books, The Warden by Anthony Trollope, was published. So that, and this is I guess a less well-known book, although I think it was quite popular at the time. But anyway, so that fulfills that challenge, to read a less well-known book published in the same year as your favorite book, or one of your favorite books. And it was a really interesting book. I don't know much about 3rd century Northern Africa, in the area of Carthage and Hippo. Really interesting story. I hear somebody walking around. Anyway, what was neat was he dedicated the book to Wilberforce. Can you see that? He dedicated his book to Henry William Wilberforce. Apparently they knew each other, and he had a lot of respect for him. So that's pretty neat. Anyway, it's a very interesting story. The first half of it, I'll admit, I was a little bit disoriented. Newman writes a little bit, he's very Victorian in his writing style. A lot of formal language, long sentences, and it kind of wooden. But so it took me a while to get used to the style. Also, since I didn't know a lot about the context, and there's a lot of Latin and Greek in it, that was a little bit confusing to me. It took me a while to settle into that. In fact, about 50% in, according to the Kindle, there's a clue that a major character in the novel is actually a real historical figure. And when I realized that, I went to the Wikipedia page and I read up on that particular person, and that really clarified a lot of the story for me. So then that really helped. And I don't want to spoil it, but it's about this band of Christians who are under persecution. They're being hunted, and it's about a particular one, Callista, who I don't think is a real saint. I think she was fictional, but she's sort of modeled on saints, on other saints, other martyrs of the time. She was really an amazing character that he imagined. She was really interesting, very intelligent. She gifted with all the worldly things, but she was also had this sense of wanting, a truth seeker, wanting the truth. And that's what sort of made Christianity appealing to her. It's very dramatic. The story, even though at first it seemed wooden, it was so unexpected. It just kept taking unexpected turns that kept it kind of riveting, because you wanted to find out what would happen next. And even the way Newman uses tense, like sometimes he's speaking in the past tense, and then when things get really gripping, he switches to the present tense, which is really interesting. And he switches from just sort of telling a narrative to suddenly directly addressing the reader to explain things. And so his use of that was really, it was, in a way, it was disorienting, and in another way it was really clever. So it kept you a little bit off, kept me a little bit off balance, so which kind of heightened the tension. It's a lot of it is pretty didactic in that he lays on heavy this sort of theology, and it's a little bit artificial because it comes out in these long conversations, which are like no conversation any normal person now would have with anyone. But still, it really is very edifying, very theologically deep. And I think it was reflecting a lot of his philosophy that comes out in his great masterpiece that Newman wrote at the end of his life called The Grammar of Assent, which is all about, from what I understand, I haven't read it, but I've heard people describe it as why humans come to believe what they believe. And Newman didn't believe it was just all about syllogisms, that we were presented with the facts and we logically followed the facts. That could be part of it. But for most people, they don't assent to things or believe things in that logical way. And he developed this idea of the illative sense, which is our ability to extrapolate from our experiences, our relationships, the knowledge that we gather from living life. Just all these things sort of coalesce into moving us towards the acceptance of things. And so I think that he was using various characters in this book to illustrate that, but in different ways. So Agilius is he's loyal to his childhood Christianity, but he's not very learned, and he's very timid and overwhelmed by the pressures around him and the hostility around him. Callista is very proud. She's Greek. She's literate, and so she's trained in the ways of the philosophers, the Greek philosophers. So she's more analytic, and she has a lot of pride in that. Just to sort of get past that. But she comes to it also in this sort of intuitive way. So it's interesting. And then the main character, and I don't know how, I'm not going to say this right. I think it's the male version of Cecilia, what we say Cecilia today, but I think it was Caecilius, who turns out to be Saint Cyprian, who was a real person. And the story takes place during the time of the plague of Cyprian. There was this terrible plague in northern Africa in the 3rd century, and the people blamed it on the Christians. So there were riots, and they really went after the Christians as a result. And it's called the plague of Cyprian because it was during the time that he was the bishop. Anyway, it's a really interesting book. It's really profound. It's about conversion. It's about relationship with the Creator, the Redeemer. So I really enjoyed it. I'm really glad that I found out about it. I didn't even know about it before Victober. Victober has just been this amazing event for me. It's really given my October a much deeper level because of the canonization of St. John Newman and just all these tie-ins. For instance, just when I was realizing that Caecilius is the Latin version of what we now say Cecilia, I found out that my daughter-in-law's, my new daughter-in-law, as of, when did they get married? May. Her confirmation saint is Saint Cecilia. So I just found that out, and then like the very next day, I made this connection in this book. So October's just been full of these amazing little things. Anyway, I finished Callista, and so now I'm going to start the picture of Dorian Gray finally. So till then, bye bye.